excitement surrounding this year's NFL draft is building rapidly, and for the Eagles, a sense of urgency is building with it. Howie Roseman's midweek contract wizardry to keep Rodney McLeod on the roster for another season highlight just how important this offseason is poised to be, and there are plenty of holes that need to be filled. The question is, with the 25th pick in this year's draft, who should the Eagles put all their chips on? My name is Liam Jenkins, and today we're taking a closer look at 5 prospects who could very well be selected by the Birds at pick 25. Before we get into today's video though guys, I did just want to say that we have dropped some fire new merchandise now available at the link in the description below. So I hope you've got your boarding passes. The attention to detail is what stands out on these things. If you want to support Philly Sports Network and look good doing it, this is the best way to do so, and it will make me so insanely proud to see our logo being represented around the streets of Philadelphia. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, if you're new to the channel, make sure you're slamming that button for all kinds of draft content like this, film breakdowns and so much more. And of course, you've got daily content at phillysportsnetwork.com. We're going to start this one off with one of the hottest names currently in this year's draft class, and that is Delaware's Nas Adie. You typically wouldn't expect to see a non-quarterback from the FCS available in the bottom of the first round, but Adley's insanely athletic skill set, 5'11", 200-pound frame has seen him reap the rewards of a Senior Bowl that forced himself into the conversation with an excellent performance. His previous experience at cornerback at Delaware has made him one of the most dynamic players in this class, and you can see it in almost every snap he's on the field. His smooth footwork and aggressive mentality is transposed from jostling at the line of scrimmage to showing impressive burst when asked to close on routes and some instinctive play around the point of the catch. He's got extreme zippiness in short areas, and you can expect him to test very well at the combine. He's got great body movement that's so fluid, it's almost like his hips just swing in the blink of an eye, and that is something that will serve him very well at the next level. And you can see that the game is slowed down for him, that it's not too much to ask. He plays so relaxed, and it really does help him with dissecting plays and those subtle intricacies that many college offenses implement. Now, to put this in a nutshell without spoiling a future Film Room episode, Adley is physical, willing, has the ball skills of a corner, the fluidity of a receiver, and the aggressiveness as a linebacker. Now, bearing in mind that Corey Graham probably won't return in 2019, the Eagles still have a severe lack of depth at safety, and at least any continuous depth in terms of like a 3 to 5 year plan outside of their starters. Adley will be a great fit not only to shore up the secondary, but to add yet another element of versatility to it as well. The second prospect undoubtedly on Howie Roseman's radar right now is linebacker Mack Wilson, and like all Alabama prospects, Wilson plays with a high motor. The thing is though that his skill set is a little bit more raw than some of the other prospects in this class. However, his athletic ability gives him a higher ceiling, especially in a system like the Jim Schwartz 4-3 where run defense is the name of the game. The Eagles love linebackers who can stuff the run, are aggressive, like to get down and dirty, and have the football IQ to understand the option looks, to understand where running backs are going to go, and to fill the right holes. At 6 foot, 231 pounds, he certainly has the range to leap into a path of a running back and bring them to the ground. The problem is that his tackling isn't really the most secure, and his physical skill set is great, but against the more powerful workhouse backs, it can often get overlapped by those lapses of judgment. And I think it's safe to say that that just comes from the aggressiveness that Nick Saban nurtures in that Alabama locker room. He's all in on every decision, and you can see that visibly on tape. It's a blessing and a curse. He's a quick decision maker, he's got the football IQ, but if at any second that rapid fire decision is wrong, there's no room for recovery. He may not be expected to start right away in Philadelphia, and that would be the perfect scenario for a linebacker who plays hard, has the physicality needed to hold his own, and the football IQ to seal the edge while the defensive front wreaks havoc. More importantly, the Eagles need some depth behind Camu Grugier-Hill and Nate Jerry. Even if running nickel packages and big dime are becoming the new base for this defense, where Malcolm Jenkins is sort of becoming that third linebacker, the Eagles need to seal up that linebacker corps, and there's a good chance that Jordan Hicks is gone at middle linebacker, so they need to get some depth from somewhere. If the team can retain Hicks, an eventual starting trio of Nigel Bradham, Jordan Hicks, and Mack Wilson, that has the potential to be absolutely devastating in a couple of years if the group is allowed to develop together. Don't sleep on the Eagles taking a linebacker at pick 25. Howie Roseman said that this draft class is historic when it comes to the interior defensive line, and it's fair to assume he may have been salivating over the idea of Christian Wilkins in midnight green. One of the most versatile linemen in this class, Wilkins flies around the field like a homing missile and will line up everywhere, from defensive end to defensive tackle, and even as a receiving option. Yeah, he's not the quickest, biggest, or longest at his position, but he may be among the most polished. Wilkins has slippery hands and a deck of pass rushing moves to keep even the most experienced of offensive linemen honest. He's light on his feet, which stops him getting bogged down after engaging, and is able to change that direction instantly. And although that may not sound like a huge attraction for defensive linemen, it does mean he can shift his weight with absolute ease and slip past blocks that are set in stone with a firm base. Wilkins doesn't have a rapid first step, but the acceleration he can conjure up by keeping those legs churning is enough to see him become a penetrative force time and time again, regardless of the opposition. What he lacks in athleticism, he makes up for in awareness and technique, and he reminds me very much of a hyena. He's cunning, ready to feast, and never to be underestimated, regardless of what other competition he's around. The Eagles need some defensive tackle depth this year, and the loss of Bo Allen really stung. With Jernigan's injury and Nata's durability, the Birds were often left at a bit of a loss. There were practice squad promotees that were constantly on and off the roster, and although there was a late shine from a couple of players in particular, the team were often without that late punch, and it left a lot of weight on the shoulders of Fletcher Cox to keep that traction going, playing nearly every single defensive snap last season. That cannot continue. The team were at their best in 2017 when Jernigan and Cox complemented each other, and when off the field, Bo Allen and Destiny Vial did a great job of cleaning up the run. At the very least, they have to replace the latter mentioned, and at the very most, well, they may just find their future franchise running mate for Fletcher Cox. Penultimately, we now move on to one of my favourite prospects in this year's class, and that's defensive end Brian Burns out of FSU. Not only is he electric as a pass rusher, but his ability to seal the edge is borderline elite. Burns has a truly explosive get-off that sees him go 0 to 100 in a split second, and he plays extremely tall due to his 6'5" frame, and that means that those long legs are like a horse galloping, just churning up turf for fun. Normally we see defensive ends with very intricate footwork that kind of rely on a lot of smaller steps. Burns just strides into the backfield, and it's so fun to watch. His speed is only matched by a similarly impressive bend. For someone, as I said, who's 6'5", to have that much flexibility and reduce his centre of gravity in the way he does, it's like watching Neo from the Matrix try to dodge bullets. Like Derek Barnett, his ankle flexion is ridiculous, and this means that running the ring, as I call it, or running the arc as others do, around offensive tackles is all fun and games at the current level. His leaner frame is a slight concern though, and that's already been brought up by many different scouts and analysts, but it's caused him no real problems so far. In fact, I think inversely it would give a team that has a much broader and ball rush specialist type defensive end the perfect complement. And given the Eagles are already set to lose Chris Long and Brandon Gray into free agency, it leaves a very light positional depth group. You've got Michael Bennett, Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat. You need to find some talent in there, and drafting someone like Brian Burns means Michael Bennett can be the veteran presence of the group, while Barnett finally assumes that starting role, and then that brings in another defensive end to start marinating to take over from when Bennett moves on and provide a truly explosive pass rush once more. And finally, the last player I think should be on Howie Roseman's radar as of right now is Washington State's Andre Dillard. Now, the Eagles have a very interesting picture at offensive tackle, and taking one in the first round, you've got to be sure that's the right guy. If teams are going to go all in on a tackle, you have to be sure, and traditionally, that's a day one performer. Interestingly though, I don't think Dillard is that prospect. He's very much a developmental type talent, but when you can see the work that Jeff Stoutland has done with this current group of offensive linemen, with names like Brandon Brooks, names like Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, even to the point now where Isaac Sayamalo has come on leaps and bounds after being generally regarded as a draft disappointment until a year ago, you can only imagine what he could do with a talent like Dillard, who has very smooth feet, he's very sound on his lower body. It's the upper strength as of right now that's the problem. Technically, he's not exactly polished. I think the hand movements are a little bit sloppy, he can get a bit panicky, he locks out his elbows. He's not a type of offensive tackle that's going to give you strong pass protection, and athletically, he's not the most gifted either. However, if there are two traits that can be coached, it is raw power and sheer technique. Dillard has the rest of it already made up. He's got feet like a ballerina, he's able to quickly reset them, which means that even if he doesn't have the most technically sound upper body, the pass rushers find it difficult to get past him because of how quickly he's able to reset, refocus and reassess the situation. And on that note, his football IQ is similarly very impressive. We saw in a tape clip just then, he's able to pick up stunts, twists and blitzes and all of that good stuff very quickly, and that builds on that momentum that you can see around the rest of the offensive line. It's not like he's inexperienced, it's not like he doesn't have that awareness. He's got the mental aspect of it loaded down, he's got a very strong base and some extremely light feet. If you can have an offensive line coach that can build up the buttercup, I think you're going to see a very talented prospect that could one day develop into an NFL starter. But that's it for today's video, guys. Did I mention the player that you want the Eagles to select with their 25th pick in the NFL draft? If not, leave their name down in the comments. I want to know what your draft strategy would be if you're Howie Roseman. And if you like this video, please slam that like button, pound subscribe if you're not part of this community already. And don't forget, we've got some fire new merch designs down below in the description. We've got plenty more content like this coming up over the next few months, so stick around. From myself, Liam Jenkins, you can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21, and I'll see you soon.